Okay, so I'm here with Tom from Giving to Life, who's kindly agreed to share some bits of his story with us. I mean, where do you want to start, Tom? I was thinking about, like, do you have a relationship with like mental health stuff? Something that you'd like to say about your own experience?
And hello, and thanks for having me. God, the thing about my mental health is I didn't know how much mental health issue, how much I had an issue with mental health when I was younger until much more recently. It was things, I remember, I don't know how old I was, but I was given antidepressants and sleeping pills, and it was just like, oh, okay, and at that time, pretty much every waking moment of my life was a suicide fantasy, but it was something we couldn't talk about. I often think, why on earth did I go to a doctor? Because it wouldn't, because it's like, it was so alien to talk to someone. I think it was just, I just figured there was no, there's nothing else to do. And yet at the same time, I worked for my dad, worked with my brother, lived with my brother, and none of them knew. And I ended up actually I was about 23, getting fired by my younger brother, who was my boss, because I kept on making mistakes, but they were mistakes I was making because I couldn't think straight, and I was drifting off I had very specific suicidal fantasies that were very specific, and I'd drift off in this, not do half of the paperwork, hand it in at the end of the day, and it was like, you've done it again, and then it was like, you're fired for being useless. And even then I couldn't say, actually, I want to die. I didn't realize that was a mental health issue until many years later. And they've come and gone, and and I know, speaking with my therapist, I'm not alone, but the pandemic, lockdown, it was kind of like it's like my mental health issues are like a pot on a stove, and when it's going well, the heat's down really low, but actually it just turned up more and more and more and more through the pandemic, and and it took a long time during that to realize the recreation for me of personal traumas was going on because of the isolation. I was sent away to boarding school
Right.
At 8, and it was like, even though I wasn't sent away, it was like I was still being sent by authority figures to be isolated. I mean, yeah, I had my girlfriend with me, and that was good and bad, because I'd sometimes rather just be totally alone in those places. And it was just like recreating a trauma of an 8-year-old, and it just bounces along my mental health. And I think at the moment, I would say that sort of pot boiling analogy is about, it's just simmering a little bit, thankfully.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just goes up. It's like someone just flashes the heat up every now and again, just, oh, hello, we're back in it. And then it's, rather than a permanent, which it was bubbling permanently for months during the pandemic. It was awful.
Yeah. And I'm sure lots of people will relate to that experience. Have you found that there are things that have, helped you get through tough things, like, I don't know, in the past or more recently?
It's well, I ended up they got me through. They didn't do me any good, but alcohol and drugs played a big part of my life. And the more I know and the more I understand and learn, it's like there's absolutely I was brought up with alcohol. Well, alcohol was in our family, so I knew I had a problem when I was about 18, 19. And I was never going to do drugs, but I'm really grateful to Class A drugs because they brought me to the floor. And I can now look back and know, because it was just very much, there's a problem with you. You are the problem because you drink, you do drugs. And it is self-medication, just purely of trauma.
Right.
It's if we see someone who's in that place with any addiction, it's an indication of their pain, their trauma, which I'm able to see now. But that was at different points in my life. That was the only thing I knew how to do to stop. Oftentimes it was my head. Other times it was just nothingness, but there was, because I didn't feel anything, but there was just something I needed to chase away. And, you know, with therapy has been a great help. Exercise, even though I don't go out to exercise, I'm a person who really needs, it's like, I can't tell me to go for a walk because it's good for me. It doesn't make sense. But if I've got to walk to the shop, there's a goal, you know, so it's like, go for a walk or do this or whatever. But writing's helped in the past. I'd love to say meditation help, but that can be entertaining if and when I try it. Yeah. But I mean, there are all the things that, inverted commas, we know help. Like, you know, good exercise, not, you know, devices late at night aren't a good thing. Films, you know, scary. I don't watch horror, but like intense films, so I sleep well. That's not a good idea. Exercise, eating well, all these things. But when I'm in a dark place, that it doesn't matter. I find it so hard to do things that are good for me when I'm in, you know, those deep dark places. You know, it's because you could say, Tom, get an early night, and I'd be like, fuck, I know. It's like I'd want to, you know, scream at you, or maybe don't eat 6 bars of chocolate today. It's like, I know, but it's all I got, you know, on some sort of small person's logic. It's like, that's all I've got, I can control, you know, and it's, so I know what does me good. I don't always do it, is the answer.
I mean, you have worked to like overcome addiction and things and maintained that for a period of time. Is that fair?
That is fair. I mean, the exact maths is, has been a couple of relapses, but it's like all but 3 and a bit years since 96.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And I'm really good at not giving myself any credit at all. So it's kind of like, so what, big deal. It's kind of, yes, but it's a very me thing. Yeah, but I'd be dead if I didn't. So, you know, I had to. And but actually we always have a choice. So yeah, it is a good thing. It doesn't mean, even though I've had lots of years not using drugs or alcohol, doesn't mean I've always been sober, which is a phrase that gets thrown around a lot, because I think there's more to being sober than not using. You know, you can be barking mad, which I have been at times, but just trying to get through. But at least I've not been using alcohol or drugs at the time, and I managed to get myself sort of grounded, I suppose. You know, that's what being sober, if to use that word, would mean to me, is being grounded, which is sure as hell can't be using Class A drugs or the amount of alcohol I did. So yeah.
Okay. What sort of would you say about the role of like music or concerts or whatever in terms of like your own recovery or your own kind of maintenance of well-being?
I mean, it's weird. Weird, yeah, it is weird. Because I'm very much aware that, you know, because Given to Live's 8 years old now, I don't listen to as much music as I used to. I think because there's been so much investment in doing music for, you know, the way we do it and what have you, that it's I don't know, it's not that I've been put off, it's just almost like music's in my head, you know, right? So then go and listen to music again isn't always the answer. But I still I still love music. I still love going to live music. I remember I'm from London originally. My first gig, I was 15, was the Michael Schenker group at Hammersmith Odeon, and that was just because me and my mate were going to a gig there. The next night we were like, oh my god, there's a concert, we'll go to another one. But the first one I really wanted to see was Priest the next night. Yeah, and we got tickets in the very back row upstairs at Hammersmith. What was it? The Apollo now, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and it was forever the Odeon to me. And it was like, I mean, what's his name? He had his Halford had his Harley, which, you know, I mean, I haven't got the best eyes in the world, but they weren't terrible then for distance. But it looked like a little dinky toy on the stage. But it was like, that was like fuck amazing. And, you know, and then went to you know, was going to Monsters of Rock and all that sort of stuff. And I'd just hitch up from London or whatever. And, you know, I was really lucky because I was walking wasn't a thing, but I mean, Hammersmith was a 20-minute walk from home, but I'd still get the tube. And so, but living in central London, you know, the Marquee, the Astoria, Wembley Arena, which had the worst sound in the world, I think, at that stage. But it was just really easy, and I liked going, and it was a night out, it was a break. And then at different times, later in my life, because it ties in with the mental health, the addiction. I'd been clean at that point for 8 years after a relapse previously, and I knew that I was very lucky to be alive. I overdosed, and if there wasn't someone there, I wouldn't be talking to you now. And stopped very shortly after that. But I'm on a bus, and Pearl Jam's Alive comes on for the millionth time I've heard it, and I just broke down because logically I knew that I was alive, but that was the first time it really hit me emotionally, because it's very easy, you know, like I said, I can dismiss very easily, oh, you've been sober for so long, and this, it's like, yeah, well, I had to stop because otherwise I'd be dead. And it was like, fuck, I'm alive. And then it was just sort of very quickly started sort of tumbling into, you need to honor this. You know, I need to honor this. I need to celebrate, actually, rather than it just being dismissed. And going back to, that's a real good indicator of when my mental health's okay, because then I have that sort of thought process of, I need to do something for me that takes care of me. I don't dismiss. And it was like, what do you love doing? I love traveling. I love Pearl Jam. I knew they was touring in the States in the November, which was also, and they had a show on my birthday. And I just thought, go on a road trip and give myself what I love. And I did. And on my birthday show, lots of separate little things happen. And that's where the idea for Given to Life started. Yeah. It was celebrating myself. And yeah, and like I said, I was lucky that I could, if I wanted, just, you know, and a lot of those times when I was young in London, I'd go up to the Marquee and get absolutely smashed. And, you know, it's awful, but it's true. I mean, I went and saw bands. I couldn't tell you one single thing about the night, but I was still able to physically do it. And I know, you know, it's not that easy for people just, and it was an escape. And then, like I said, about the drink and needing to just run away. But, you know, I don't have to drink to go to a gig anymore. Yeah. You know?
So you said that gig was the place where you had the idea for Given to Life. Tell us about it and what kind of people you help and stuff.
Well, the idea that could take hours. So shall I skip the idea? Shall I skip the idea and the
summary of what it is now, perhaps? Let's say.
Yeah, I mean, condensing. Once it came to being, it's purely using live music. It does tend to be the very vast majority of people who have been applied for has tended to be rock or metal. Have gone to see Little Mix. Have can't remember that lady's name, but yeah, Jess Gwynn.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But on the whole, it's rock and metal that gets applied for, and it's about celebrating our guest's life, whatever he or she is or has been through. So when someone like, you know, Nikki, who actually messaged me last night, we took to see Eddie Vedder in 2019. She'd been through, I mean, some really horrific domestic abuse, and she'd got through it. You know, there were still court cases going on, but she'd gotten away, and she actually applied for her daughter, who saved her life, to see a show. And then I kind of organized that, but was in the process where every time I was chatting with Nikki, finding out more about what was going on for her, and ended up turning it all around and giving her a show as well. And that was, in that instance, it's like, look what you've managed to achieve. Look what you've done. You've got this far, you know, from that awful situation. We've taken someone who's, you know, he didn't know how long he had to live because of inoperable cancer. He was in his 40s. He just wanted to go to a festival before he died. It turned out that my memory is a few years ago now, he died within about 2 weeks of that festival.
Wow.
But it was beautiful and it was perfect. And the one thing, amongst other things, it was like a sunny day, and it was sunny. It was beautiful. Youngsters who have survived cancer, people with learning difficulties, mental health issues, depression, and it would probably, I mean, we, when I set it up, I said, we help vulnerable and excluded, which by saying excluded makes it very inclusive. So it doesn't have to be just one thing or another. And I mean, people often ask, "Oh, which are your favorite shows?" and this, that, and the other. But one of the favorite memories is like Nikki, I mentioned, because we write the story and she wanted it. We always, with permission, to be honest. She wanted it very honestly written. Before the show, there's myself and 6 women talking about their relationship with domestic abuse. Either their parents had, and I'm sitting there going, we did this, we've got this thing together. People have messaged her privately to meet, and it's about a community. In that instance, it's about really honoring and celebrating, because sometimes it doesn't matter where we've come from. You could be super rich, super privileged, but you might not feel like you matter, and it's that for a day, for 24 hours, however long you're with us, it's like I don't care who you're going to see, whether it's Slipknot or Pearl Jam or Jess Glynn or Little Mix. The VIPs aren't on the stage. They're the people who are sat with us, and that's how they get treated from start to finish, hopefully.